Insurrection. We have an insurrection in LA. Insurrection 50.0. I'm joking, of course, but it is fun to watch these anti-ICE protests play out. Because what Trump did by sending in the National Guard without consenting Governor Newsom, he pulled a Lincoln. That's what Trump did. He just pulled a Lincoln. Because remember, back in 1861, Lincoln sent 75,000 troops down to South Carolina, the southern states, to quell the quote-unquote rebellion. And this was days after shots were fired at Fort Sumter. There was no rebellion because South Carolina had seceded. They seceded in December of 1860. And Lincoln had promised the people of South Carolina, or people of Charleston, that he was just sending ships to Fort Sumter so that he could replenish some of the supplies there. So I'm not going to make this a video about the Civil War or how it started. But I don't think this is going to go well for Trump. He pulled a Lincoln. So here are the headlines that are out there about this, these anti-ICE protests. ABC 7 Los Angeles, anti-ICE protesters clash with police officers in chaotic melee. Well, I added that word because you know how it is when you go to the internet and you look up these headlines. They always leave a word or two out. LA Times, LAPD officers and riot gear clashed with protesters in downtown LA. CBS News, what to know about the Los Angeles immigration protest after citywide ICE operations. KTLA 5, heavy military presence seen in downtown Los Angeles after days of immigration protest. But this is why we need to bring everything back to the states. If the state of California wants to invite in as many illegal immigrants as they please, let them do it. Because otherwise you have a situation like this where you've got the president sending in the National Guard when this is something that local authorities can handle. But people tend to forget 1992, the Rodney King riots, because you see, whether it's Rodney King or George Floyd or these ICE raid protests, this has nothing to do with whatever the thing is. These ICE raid protests aren't about immigration. They're about the 2028 election. That's what this is all about. Just as it was in 1992 with the Rodney King riots. 1992 was an election year. What did George Bush do? He sent in the National Guard to LA to quell the quote-unquote rebellion. So it is a real scream to watch this all play out. Because history has a funny way of repeating itself. So let's get to this article over at Fox 11 LA, talking about Trump possibly invoking the Insurrection Act. Insurrection Act not off the table for LA protest, Trump says. Now this came out today, the 8th. Speaking to reporters Sunday, Trump did not rule out invoking the Insurrection Act in response to the Los Angeles ICE protest. Apparently these protests are going to go on for another 30 days because ICE is going to have these raids for the next 30 days. It's the summer of love. Quote, we're not going to let them get away with it. We're going to have troops everywhere, Trump said. He said he wouldn't rule out invoking the Insurrection Act as violent protests against federal immigration officers continue in LA for a third day. Says your National Guard troops clashed with protesters Sunday, firing tear gas at crowds as protesters moved onto the freeway surrounding downtown and blocked traffic. Police said 2 LAPD officers were injured after they were hit by a motorcyclist who tried to breach a skirmish line. Now, the Insurrection Act allows the president to call on National Guard or active duty military in response to unrest in these states. But there's a caveat with that. And that is that the president has to first ask these participants in whatever the uprising is to disperse. So he just can't enact the Insurrection Act and go after these people. He has to try to calm the situation first before he does it. But how many people have heard of something called the, let me find it here, Posse Comitatus Act? The Posse Comitatus Act. Say that 10 times. So this prohibits, generally speaking, pardon me, prohibits using the military for law enforcement purposes. I didn't know there was such a thing. The Posse Comitatus Act. Now, the Insurrection Act was passed in 1792 by Congress, and this really was designed to quell slave rebellions at the time, but it was later used during the Civil War to quash the South. And according to national security expert Joseph Nunn with the Brennan Center for Justice, who spoke with the AP, he said these different statutes enacted between 1792 and 1870, or the 1870s, was there at a time when you really didn't have any local law enforcement. It was created for a country that doesn't exist anymore, the Confederacy. But, again, this is a real scream to see play out. Because it all goes back to bringing everything back to the states. And Trump just can't go in there and send in the National Guard troops without the consent of the governor. That's overstepping your power as a president. But this has nothing to do with immigration. Just like it had nothing to do with George Floyd. It sounds to me like Trump is giving these people a dose of their own medicine. Give them a dose of their own medicine. Because they accused Trump in 2021 of engaging in insurrection with January 6th. Now he's turning around and invoking the Insurrection Act against them. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. You can follow me at Instagram, #JasonComposes, because I write music in my spare time. You can go to X, Culture Confederacy, Culture Confed 1 on X. Now you can find me at Substack. So this is the Culture Confederacy saying peace out. Stay safe, everybody. God bless this thing called the United States. I'll catch you next time. And y'all have a great Sunday night. Take care.